I have one more for churches that are first century churches in the 21st century. And that has to do with starting new congregations. Let me tell you a bit of my own story. In 1990, Wooddale Church, where I have been the senior minister for 31 years, was in the process of building a large new worship center. And it is a magnificent space. It has the largest American-built tracker pipe organ, a 200-foot steeple. And the cost of it in the initial budget was kind of frightening and breathtaking. It was an awful lot of money. Never did we dream that we would go triple the cost that we initially anticipated. So what I'm going to tell you was in a context that was financially frightening. I taught a class at Bethel Seminary in St. Paul. Walked into the classroom, and the previous class had left papers all around the entire room, taped on the wall with masking tape. They were newsprint sheets that had magic marker writing on them. And there were loads of them, but there was one that caught my eye and attention. It said, "The most effective way to reach people for Jesus Christ in our generation is through starting new churches." And I could not get that out of my mind. So for days, actually weeks and months, I kept thinking about that over and over. And I really struggled with our spending millions of dollars to build this large building when maybe that wasn't a very effective way of reaching people for Jesus Christ at all. So I proposed to the leadership of Wooddale Church that we bring in a new church pastor who could recruit as many people as possible out of Wooddale Church to launch a new congregation that would have its first day, its birthday, on the day that we moved into this new sanctuary. And one of the things I just love is unanimity among church leaders. And they unanimously agreed that this was a really bad idea. As one leader's wife said to me in the hallway, she said, "You know, Leith, we love you. You're just wrong. I mean, you're just wrong." But over a period of months, they were willing to consider it. A task force was set up, and to very much shorten the story, we decided to do it. And while we didn't hit that exact day, we brought a new pastor to recruit as many people as he could, and Woodridge Church was started about 15 miles away with 2 services and 400 people on their first Sunday. And we experienced something that I don't think we anticipated. That when the daughter church was started, it didn't change the numbers or the offerings or anything that you would graph in the mother church. It was like that story in the Old Testament about the oil being supernaturally replenished. So there came other churches, and from Woodridge Church to Woodcrest and Westwood and Oakwood, and some of them starting, Westwood Church started with 3 services and 850 people on their first Sunday. It was far beyond our wildest dreams and imagination. And City Church in South Minneapolis, and a repeated invitation to people to leave Wooddale Church, whether it's to go with Christian Ruck in Hopkins or to go to one of our daughter churches. It is to go and to do what is most effective in reaching people for Jesus Christ, until starting new churches just becomes our lifeblood, our mentality. And you say, well, if you're part of a large congregation, you can do that. But you know, there are other ways of doing it as well. Charlene and I have a lake cabin in north central Minnesota, and we got to know our next door neighbors. This is 150 miles away from our home and from Wooddale Church. Got to know our next door neighbors, and we talked about starting a Bible study, and so we did on Memorial Day weekend. And there were 3 couples that came. We met in our next door neighbor's house, and we studied the Bible together on the holiday weekend. By Labor Day weekend, the Bible study had grown to 126 people. Moved out of their living room, the house wasn't quite that large, and went to the local community center. This is in a town with 1,950 population. The closest city is about 20 miles away, and it has 10,000 population. And then the next major metropolitan area is Minneapolis-St. Paul, and that's 150 miles away. So this is no suburb. This is a rural community with 2,000 population, which has now become a congregation with multiple services with 300 or 400 people in a town of less than 2,000, recently had 17 acres given to them and plan to move into a new facility by Christmas. And we have committed as a church to seek to start a new church every year if we can do that, maybe even more often than that. Because the most effective way to reach people for Jesus Christ in our generation is by starting new congregations. I am absolutely convinced the future belongs to those that start new churches. And the truth is that the largest and most influential churches of the year 2030 have probably not even been started yet. The truth is that many of the old line denominations in the United States don't ever start new churches. And that is a death knell as far as their future is concerned. That the vibrant denominations of the future are those that make church starting, church planting, their highest priority. My friend and mentor, Lyle Schaller, the premier of church consultants, has an exaggerated statement when he suggests that denominations should not report each year offerings or attendance or baptisms or membership, that there are only two questions that ought to be asked of constituent churches. Number one is, how many churches did you start last year? And number two is, how many churches are you going to start next year? That it's all about starting new churches. Now, you have patiently listened for a long time, and you're wondering, and what does all this analysis and talk have to do with the Anglican mission in America? I am a constant observer of American Christianity and American churches. I lead the National Association of Evangelicals, which has over 60 member denominations and hundreds of parachurch ministries. And I am convinced that the Anglican mission in America has been blessed and positioned by God to do something extraordinary in America in the 21st century. You are committed to the Bible as the standard of faith and practice. You adhere to Orthodox Christian faith. You are an amazing combination of tradition and tomorrow. You are under the authority of the Church of Rwanda. You are directly connected to one of the greatest spiritual pipelines to a part of the world where God is doing something that has never, ever been done in the history of Christianity. And you have a heart for and a wonderful track record in starting new churches. There are so many ways in which God has blessed the Anglican mission. Charles Spurgeon once said, "It takes a steady hand to hold a full cup." Your cup is full to the brim with God's blessings. May He give you a steady hand to be the first century church in our 21st century. Believe biblically, glorify God, minister contextually, and start new churches. There is a story about a brilliant young pianist in London. He was only 17 years old when he had his inaugural recital in a concert hall in that city. And the word was already out, and every one of the 1,000 seats was sold, and every seat was filled. They say that he was magnificent. He was a prodigy. He stirred their hearts and excited their souls with the music that he played. And when he finished his repertoire, stood up and took a bow, there was instant standing ovation. And he slipped off the stage. And they just clapped and clapped and clapped. The stage manager said, "Well, they want you to come back out there." You got to do an encore. He said to the stage manager, I played everything that I know. And the stage manager said, well, just go out there. Again, you can't just ignore them. Go back out and smile and bow down. You have everybody is standing and applauding for you. Everybody. The young man said, no, they're not. He said, what do you mean? The young pianist said, there's a gray-haired man up in the balcony, and he's not standing, and he's not clapping. So the stage manager parted the curtain, looked, and there's this noise and this crowd just wildly enthusiastic. And true, one man up in the balcony, seated and not clapping. So he turned back to the young pianist and said, okay, 999 people are standing and giving you an ovation. What difference does that one guy in the balcony make? He said, he's my teacher. There was another brilliant young man with a crowd around him. He didn't play the piano, but he was a prodigy of a preacher. And he delivered one of the most magnificent sermons that has ever been preached. But they didn't applaud him. They picked up rocks to stone him. It's all recorded in Acts chapter 7. When they heard this, they were furious and gnashed their teeth at him. But Stephen, full of the Holy Spirit, looked up to heaven and saw the glory of God and Jesus standing at the right hand of God. Doesn't the Bible normally say that Jesus is seated at the right hand of the Father? Look, look, Stephen said. I see heaven open and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of God. You, the Anglican mission in America, someday may Jesus stand for you.